Hi, everyone. This is the Focus on Focusing podcast. I am your host, Cynthia Perez.
And Tanya Covarrubias.
And Olivia Lee.
So, today is a very special episode. We have our very first guest. Okay, so we'll introduce him real quick. Do you wanna say your name?
Hey guys, my name is Mike.
Okay, so Mike will talk a little bit more about his journey with ADHD medication, which is what this episode is all about. But first, we want to go into our icebreaker. So, can everyone tell what their most ADHD thing they did this week, if that made any sense?
Okay, so the most ADHD thing I did was on Monday at work. I went into the closet to get a toy for my client, and once I got into the closet, I completely forgot what I was grabbing.
I feel like I do that all the time.
Yeah,
I know.
same. I would say mine is actually like as we're sitting here, Tanya brought these little fidget squishy things. I don't even know what you would really call them, and I cannot like put it down. I've literally been playing with it for the past 30 minutes.
They're so fun to play with.
I love fidget toys.
Okay. I guess mine was actually had to do with this podcast and why the audio might be a little weird. So I forgot my adapter at home for one of the mics because I was so excited about the podcast and I was just trying to remember to actually bring the microphone that I just completely forgot about the adapter. But
I
Yep.
always forget stuff all the time. So
okay, so our guest, do you want to share?
So mine is a really ridiculous story. My job requires me to be like pretty hands-on, working closely with my boss, and we drive around in my car a lot. And typically I'll be on my phone or device all day with working with my boss. And I realized that on Monday morning, as I was driving down to meet with her, I didn't have my phone charger with me, like a little cigarette lighter, and I was panicking because I wasn't planning properly. So I had to basically come up with a plan on the spot, and I had to go to like a gas station to find like a cigarette lighter and an iPhone charger, and I couldn't find one there, and it took me maybe like 5 minutes to finally get one. And then I realized that it wasn't compatible with what I needed, so I'm panicking and rushing some more. So I have to tell my boss that I was late because I was running into car troubles when in reality I went to Kroger. It took me another 10 minutes to go ahead and find and track down like an associate to like unlock the phone charger because they had them behind a lockbox for some reason. And I finally made it there. And that was just me running around like doing a million things at once because I couldn't find a phone charger.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think your story probably tops ours.
yeah, for sure.
But the best thing was she believed me. I told her that my tire pressure was low. And funny enough, on the way to work, I was just trying to think of anything. So I came up with a tire pressure thing. Then 2 minutes away from her, my tire pressure sensor actually lit up on my car. So it worked out beautifully.
No way. Perfect timing.
I know, right?
Okay, so kind of diving into what we are talking about today, we have our study of the day. So I found a study where researchers conducted a panel of 9 physicians, 2 psychologists, and 2 patient representatives who collectively made 46 recommendations for individuals with Tourette's syndrome or other chronic tic disorders to use ADHD medication as a way to manage tics. And I guess this implies that ADHD medication could just really go beyond just ADHD symptoms and diagnoses. Okay, so now we're gonna get into our questions for you, Mike. So the first question we have is how you decided to start on ADHD medication.
Well, truth be told, it wasn't really like my own decision. So I grew up with Tourette syndrome, and when I was in seventh grade, it got really, really bad. Like I was having like tic attacks in class, outside of class, like sporting events and all that whenever I would play baseball. And it got so bad to where, I went to my parents about it. I said, I want to make this stop or at least minimize it. And, we went to the doctor and eventually I was on ADHD meds. And that was for about a year and a half from seventh grade to like the beginning of my eighth grade.
Okay. Um, can you talk a little bit more about how like ADHD and Tourette's often overlap?
Yeah, I mean, in my personal experience, I noticed. I mean, I had ADHD as well as Tourette's. It wasn't just like one or the other. But I noticed that when I would have like like my tic attacks or whatnot when I was younger, it would prevent me from focusing. I would get super anxious because I was worried that like everyone was like looking at me like like freaking out or whatever, and that would just kind of like spiral it into like worse and worse tic attacks. And the ADHD from the start was always pretty hard to deal with. Just having them both was super super tough, but there's definitely a lot of overlap between the two. Obviously, if you have Tourette's, you're more than likely to have ADHD. That's definitely something that I've noticed in my experience.
And what did you notice while you were on the medication?
Admittedly, it's been a while, but I remember having my Tourette's be like severely less severe, if that makes any sense. It was, I would say it was like a 9 out of 10 in terms of intensity and like anxiety inducing, and it went down to like a 2 or a 3. It was like night and day. I remember after a few weeks of starting, it was like very minimal. It wasn't that big of a deal. And, I was able to focus a lot more as well because I have I'm one of those people with ADHD where I just like my brain is bouncing at a million places at one time. So it definitely helped a lot.
Okay.
So, what made you decide to stop the medication, or was that your choice?
It was kind of both me and my parents' choice. After being on it for about a year or so, I had noticed that my effects had gone down, my symptoms had gone down, and my parents didn't want me on ADHD medication forever. So we talked about it, and eventually I stopped. And really, since then, it hasn't been quite as bad. Even though it was just for a year, I would say that it helped severely.
How has your life changed since going off the medication?
I've definitely learned how to control my Tourette's. Sometimes with, stresses in life and work and all that, it gets bad, but really only be for maybe a few minutes at a time, a few seconds at a time where I'll have tic attacks or where, I'm super stressed. Back then when I was a kid, it was like for hours and hours or even days on end, there wouldn't be even a few seconds where I wasn't having some sort of, episode. It's definitely made my life a lot easier and it's been easier to control it.
Okay.
And how did being on ADHD meds for something other than ADHD affect how people saw or treated you?
Um, Honestly, I would say being on it definitely made, uh, if it makes any sense, being on it definitely helped, make friends and be myself more often. Admittedly, when I, was going through like those bad tic attack episodes, my classmates thought I was doing it on purpose and was trying to be like funny or annoying or whatnot. And it definitely made me like a little bit of an outcast in seventh grade. But obviously, once you explain it and then once it gets better people start looking at you different. I think that's just the nature of being in eighth grade, being a 13-year-old. But being off of it has obviously improved my life, and having my Tourette's not be as bad, it's definitely improved my life as well. It's something that's a lot more manageable and easier to deal with in day-to-day life.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I guess that kind of answered my next question. If you feel different being off meds, so you said that you feel more. Do you think you feel more yourself or more controlled?
Yeah, absolutely. It was I think having that in my life at one point was very important for me to learn how to control it and deal with it. But now I feel, perfectly like myself. Again, it's not something that really affects me in day-to-day life these days anymore. It's something that's very easy to manage.
What is something that you wish more people kind of understood about going on medication, or even just ADHD and Tourette's?
Something I wish more people understood was that it's different for everybody. Not only ADHD, but specifically, Tourette's as well. Because I don't bring it up very often, just because it's not, again, that's not a huge, significant part of my life to where it's not very noticeable for people that don't know about it already. But when I bring up I have Tourette's, they always bring up that South Park episode. Like, oh, did you see that South Park? I guess I did see the South Park episode. I think that's the biggest like conception publicly on Tourette's is admittedly, it's really funny, but that's like the biggest conception I think people have about Tourette's, that you're swearing every 5 seconds, or that you're doing some crazy stuff, and a lot of the time it's minor things. It's not the end of the world for a lot of people, and for me, it wasn't too bad. I think that's my biggest. I think that's the biggest misconception I face with Tourette's.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being our first guest
Yeah, of
and
course.
sharing your story.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Alrighty,
you.
well,
thank you.
Okay, guys, so we're back. Hopefully, that brought some insight into how ADHD medication can be used for other things besides actual ADHD. So now we're going to talk about just some stigmas around ADHD medication. Well, one of the first ones that comes to mind is just taking meds, meaning that you're not trying hard enough. What do y'all think about that?
I think that taking meds is okay. Especially for somebody that is diagnosed with ADHD, because it gives them more of a sense to feel more engaged in their everyday life and not feel like cluttered everywhere. And it's not that you're not trying hard enough, it's just you need that little push to help you get through your day.
I feel like it also kind of helps you feel like you're kind of like more in control. Like you kind of have a control on it instead of letting it just kind of take over you. You're kind of like not letting it take over you, but you're in charge of it and kind of in charge of you. Kind of like take back, like you're in charge of yourself. Like,
Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, I guess just medication in general for most mental disorder or mental disorders, neurological disorders, kind of makes people feel like they're not trying hard enough, but everyone's different. And I guess that kind of also brings me to the next stigma where meds are kind of seen as like a quick fix, or that they fix everything. Personally, I think that everyone is different. There's going to be different treatments that work differently for everyone. Someone is going to benefit more from medication than someone who, let's say, goes into some sort of like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or what do y'all think?
I have to agree with you on that. Because I feel like that just goes with every medication. People are just like, oh, you're on a medication, it's a quick fix for you. But honestly, it's still pretty hard on a day-to-day life. It's really just how you strategize coping with your ADHD.
Yeah.
I like to also think sometimes is using medication for mental health is kind of like when you get sick, like you have a virus or something, you start taking antibiotics, and that's just one of the things you do to help your body like cope with this and fight this. I mean, in that case, you're fighting it off, but like I think it's also a way that you can like help your body cope with it.
Right, exactly.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like some big scary thing or even like some easy way out. Like
right.
It is what it is.
Right, yeah. Do y'all know any like myths or stigmas around ADHD?
I know one. It's ADHD medication is addictive.
I heard that.
Yeah.
But then again, it does go because some people consider it a drug, and most people who do drugs get addicted to it. But I don't completely agree with that because it's prescribed by a doctor and they give you as much as you need. If you go out of your way to take more, then that you could get addicted, but
Right.
usually you just follow the doctor's prescription.
Right, and they're like monitoring it.
Yeah, exactly. I think as long as like you're using it in like I guess a legal manner, like if you're going out and like buying like ADHD medication from people when you're not actually prescribed by it, I think that's where it can become a problem. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, like any really drug, like I know you can get addicted to painkillers and like those are just like over the counter. So yeah, I mean, it could really just depend.
Yeah. Well, those are the myths that I think we came up with.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, with all of that, I think it kind of brings the point of no one size fits all. Like, medication is going to work better for someone else than it will for someone who's just doing some sort of therapy. And you know, I know there's almost like also like a spectrum. I feel like some people almost can function better with ADHD than other people, and maybe those people don't need like as high of a dose or any medication at all. I feel like they could probably manage it with some sort of like routines, like maybe writing stuff down more, like setting reminders for yourself. I know for myself though, like I feel like even with reminders, I'll even forget to look at the reminders, or like I have this really bad habit of like ignoring them.
Like it's too overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I don't know, maybe even I need to look at the medication for that. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be different for everyone.
Yeah, I do agree. You know, it's more common now. We have all this technology, different doctors that can diagnose ADHD. From before times, there was not many doctors out there, and it was brand new, So
Yeah.
I think since it's more common, people normalize it more than they did before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think mental health just in general is becoming more.
Yeah, which I'm really glad about, because then we can learn more about people. More people are willing to go get tested, and then with that we get a larger like sample. I know right now in our classes we're learning about sample sizes, and like we're doing a lot of research in a lot of our classes. So I feel like that's kind of fresh on my mind right now about like bigger samples, bigger like effect sizes, whatever. Like all that stuff's like in my head right now. But yeah, I feel like if you're maybe struggling, it's okay to need help. It's okay to accept that maybe there are some things that, I know for me, I kind of noticed that like I was doing things that weren't really like normal for my age group, I guess. Like I would get called like almost like immature sometimes, like by my parents, and they're like, oh, well, you're just not being responsible enough. Like you just need to be more responsible enough. But it's really just like, it can just go like deeper than that. So it's okay to need help, seek help. It's okay to also like test trial things like this works for me, this doesn't work for me. If you're scared to take medication, that's also very valid and very understandable. But sometimes, you just never really know what will work for you until you try it.
Yeah, and I will say with, getting the help that you need, there's a lot of resources outside and in school that you could participate in. I know if you think it's causing a learning disability, you could submit a form and get them to help you get more time on assignments, which is very helpful. Or you could even see the psychology department to help you out and develop a schedule and coping mechanisms for ADHD.
Right, and one of the biggest things that KSU offers too is free therapy. So that's always available and like accessible to anyone who just maybe just wants to like talk about all of this.
Yeah.
That's really okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up everything we talked about today. Hopefully, you guys learned something new in this episode. And don't forget to take our survey. Please take our survey. This will help us not only for our research project, but also it will help you out because we can, kind of see our audience or what our audience looks like, what you guys want to see next. We're always open to suggestions, and if you want us to talk about something, we're very open to just adding new ideas to our podcast. So yeah, do y'all want to say something? Some closing words?
I guess just thank you for tuning in. And like Cynthia said, make sure you check out our survey to help us.
Please.
Okay, everything. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what they both said, and thank you guys for listening to our second episode.
Okay, bye. See y'all next time.